Welcome to the H2Know podcast, where we take you beyond the headlines and into the heart of Hamilton Community Schools. From classroom innovation and career pathways to success stories and community connections, this is your inside look at what makes Hamilton shine. Here's your host, Zach Harry.
Hello, Hamilton community. Welcome back into another edition of the H2Know podcast here with Hamilton Community Schools Superintendent Dr. Brad Lusk. And today the topic is very simple. Why start a podcast, right? We have all these different social media channels and different ways of communicating with our community and the transcript newsletter. And yet here we are in my office with a beautiful backdrop, a couple microphones. Thank you for being on and fill us in a little bit. Where did this idea come from?
Well, first off, Zach, thanks for doing this. I mean, you've done a great job on previous podcasts or so, and I'm looking forward to doing this. So thanks for kind of heading this up and doing a great job with it. So the podcast, well, it's kind of an interesting story a little bit as to where this came from, in that one of the things we try to do is really try to communicate with people where they're at, meet them where they're at. And, you know, you've been a big part of our communication, obviously, and doing a great job if it's the video or the emails or any type of the transcript. And then also everything we've done from even the Google Docs that are live and people can always look back to look at communication. We try to be very transparent with things and keeping people up to date on what's going on. And so as we keep moving forward, can we find a way to meet people differently? And so there's a little of the podcast craze, if you will, and going a little bit into where the ideas. I just went to a soup conference and listened to what another school was doing and tried to Hamiltonize it a little bit. And so one of the things that came out of it is, okay, you hear about a podcast and, okay, what is that? Okay, you learn about what a podcast is and what kind of information can be shared. But then also talking with other people, we have a lot of great things going on in our district. And how can we communicate it better within our district and also outside for our stakeholders? And so this is kind of where the thought came from. And so, as you and I have done a number of times, we kind of talk about things back and forth, and here we are.
And I think the interesting part is it's not an or, right? It's an and. So what we mean by that is it's not going to replace a video or a social media post or an email. It is going to be an add-on. And like you said, to meet people where they are. I think one thing that's really interesting is we can do a full video on something and people still might have questions, right? I don't really understand what that is, or what does this mean? But I think this is kind of the way to bridge that gap and really dive in. Is that right? I mean, what's your vision for how we're going to use this?
Yeah, so that's a great point. Is we talk to a lot of people, obviously, throughout the day and about a number of different things. And that piece came up of a prime example, I'd say, was that Hope video.
Yes.
That was the one we've talked about a number of times of great video. I thought it was one of the better ones. And you have that video that gives a good insight as to what's going on, highlights the kids, highlights the key players. People know that it's out there, but they don't know the specifics. They don't know the in the weeds piece on there. And so we've found through our conversations that was a common thread, is that people know what's going on there, or maybe they've heard about it, but they don't know the specifics, how to get into the weeds per se on there. And what are the steps? What does it fully involve? So with this podcast, the thought was, is this an opportunity for us to really dive deep into specific topics, to get really into the step-by-step, the really nitty-gritty of it, offer it for our community members, our students, our parents, even our own district, to take a time to listen to it on the way to work, while you're working out, making dinner, whatever the case is. Whenever you have time to listen to something, it doesn't have to be at your desk or laying in bed scrolling through your phone. It could be at other times where you can utilize that time where you're doing something. Just throw it on and listen to it, and you can learn a lot of information about specific topics along the way. And so that's our goal, is to really dive into the weeds on things and provide that specific information that people can learn about our district.
And I think it's so interesting. You've already sent me a list of about 20 different podcast ideas. I mean, there are a lot of really good topics that fit this type of narrative as far as just really diving into things, right? Mr. Eric Talsma, our athletic director, is going to join us on our next episode, and then Kathy Dykemar, transportation supervisor. There's just a lot going on that people need to be aware of around the district.
And what you nailed earlier was key. Is it's not a in place of.
Right.
It's on top of. And so that's the piece of how can we get the great information out, getting some high spotlights and highlights. Those are great things. But can we take it a step further on certain things of talked about the dual enrollment pieces or the Hope College piece, early middle college, if it is even into our transportation department, how to get your CDL. We have people that will call the office or email in or call Kathy. Well, how do I get my CDL? How do I become a bus driver? And so this gives you an opportunity to learn the step-by-step process. Or how do you determine routes? I don't even understand how you do that. So those are just some random examples of things that we might cover along the way, in addition to the great things we already do. Because as people may or may not know, behind the mic, if you will, you spent a lot of time in figuring this up. We've had some convos with other people to figure out how to make this work pretty efficiently. Because that's the key thing: is how can we get this information out to people and not only learn about it in real time, but also as a resource, a repository where, let's say 3 months from now, somebody wants to learn something, or a year from now wants to learn something about it, they can be pointed back to this and they can learn it on their own time.
That's exactly it. And that's a really interesting point about getting feedback from other people. Josh Zorhoff is one guy. We will name Jarop, has a nice podcast as well. We went and met with him and just kind of got his thoughts. We're not going to run as upscale of a podcast as what he
Top
does,
notch.
right?
He's got some nice time. I mean, this is not small potatoes here, but
yeah. But we do want to thank our community sponsors as well. The Hawkeye Hometown Series has been a huge part of our community engagement in Hamilton, and then also just part of getting this going. Not a ton of equipment needed to do something like this, but again, just want to thank those community sponsors. And today we want to give a shout out to CL Plumbing Incorporated, Country Body Shop, and Cultivate Community Church, who of course does a lot with the Hawkeye Hometown Tailgate. Let's talk about the name of the podcast. That was a hot button issue for a while in this office, just kind of bouncing ideas off of one another. We had a couple of different ideas without going into the weeds on those, but a lot of them, I don't want to say were trademarked, but they had quite a big following. We don't want to step on some shoes.
few more than we currently have.
Yeah. So H2Know, how do you think it fits, and where was you came up with that idea? Where did that come from?
It's not about me. It's about the team here. So we always have fun looking at these things, and we've come up with some interesting names on things of ABC nights or whatever the case is. And we like to have a little fun with it and try to have a catchy name. It rolls off the tongue a little bit, and so there were some great names, and some of them were already utilized, and so it'd be hard to kind of find our spot in there. But the H2Know, I thought it was kind of a catchy name, and you throw things against the wall and see what sticks. And so that was something where it'd have a little educationally based with the H2O, H2Know. You got the little H with the square symbol there with the O to. Oh, that was kind of good. Hamilton to know. What do we get to know? What are the happenings to know in there? And this is, I think, kind of a good opportunity to do that.
And we're diving into the weeds, and that's what I think. I think that fits really well. Strategic vision is something that we don't toss it around a ton, especially with our community. But I think it's important to bring up the Board of Education and just kind of what they want to see and how this podcast fits into the grand scope of our district's strategic vision and kind of where we can improve, if you will.
So that's a great point that you brought up, is that we've been working on that focus plan that we adopted about a year or so ago. And somebody said, well, I don't hear much about it, Brad. And that I almost think that's sometimes good. I mean, they see some good things going on, great things going on. You're like, wow, we're improving. Well, that's just not out of thin air. I mean, those are very strategic things. Like you say, we've really identified in our plan. And so we kind of tick them off and keep moving and improving on some areas. And this is an area that one of our plan items was this kind of the marketing and getting out and identifying some areas of our district we can improve upon. And I'll be honest with you, it was kind of a lofty goal as part of our strict strategic plan. And then this fit right in there. It was one of those I'd say, can't say we exactly planned for it, maybe stumbled a little bit into it. But we found that this was a good idea and really met a need in our district and obviously in our community to get people more educated on it. And this really fit into not only what we needed, but also what we can kind of improve our district plan.
I love it. What else do you want people to know about this podcast before we sign off?
So I think one of the things on this podcast is that we really want to make sure that we get into the weeds and make sure people are educated on there. They're making educated decisions on educated guesses. And so when we talk about the guests and whatnot, is really prep them along the way as to what can they expect.
Mhm.
So you have your topic, and then what can we do and make sure we get people educated on that. And then also to kind of show that we're evolving. We can try different things. Now we're trying to utilize our time effectively and utilizing it as a resource and as a repository of information. Or have your friends check this out, or
Yeah.
for school of choice options, people can look at this and look at what's going on. And we're not above. I mean, I'm not afraid of getting some opinions or some different
Mhm.
topics to talk about.
Yeah.
But the key thing is making sure that we're doing it in somewhat of a timely manner, 20-ish
Mhm.
plus or whatever minus minutes. And that people can really, if you're interested in a topic, comb through the topics on there. We'll be very clear as to the topic on there, and then take a listen. And if you got questions, that's great. Feel free to, if it's not meant to be a one catch all, ask. If it's a high school counselor or a building principal or your elementary teacher or whatnot, ask questions. Email us. That's fine.
Mhm.
We want people to understand what we're offering and to really understand the great things we have going on.
And I think another thing to touch on is I didn't want to do this in a way as far as hosting it. But in a way, I mean, you and I have talked about it. I'm not from the education world, right?
Correct.
I'm in year 4 in this role. So it makes sense because I'm able to dive into the weeds and ask maybe a quote unquote stupid question where other people might know the answer, right? In an education background, I might not. So in a way, I get to put on kind of a parent cap, if you will, and ask, well, what does that even mean, right? There's a lot of acronyms in education. There's a lot of different, just different verbiage, I think, from what, standard parents and community members might be accustomed to. So I will play that role, as you will probably be able to tell within a couple of episodes of, well, that's an easy question. Well, we really want to try to dive in and make sure everybody understands where we're coming from on different things.
And Zach, I know you may be poking a little fun at that, but that is, and honestly, that is very true. I mean, honestly, that became very clear. We talked about that. It's awesome having somebody that like you that is in it a little bit, but not fully in it.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, that's actually great for us because sometimes we'll talk about things and we just make assumptions, not on purpose or whatnot or intentionally. But it's great to have somebody to ask back. Can you clarify that a little bit, or what do you mean by that exactly? So it's great having that. So thank you for doing that. And obviously you're pretty good at this stuff too, asking the questions and running these things. So it's always good to see that. But I really see this as a great opportunity, hopefully to get people engaged in asking some questions. And who knows where this evolves to? Maybe we take some scoop of the soup questions or do it live. Who knows? We'll see where this takes us. But I think this has some good opportunities to kind of show a different side of our staff. And the goal is to have it range. I mean, from a number of different people, hopefully, that can pop into this.
And again, a great point on the topics, the questions. I mean, you're always free to email me, zherrig at hamiltonschools.us. We're always happy to take topics and suggestions on things like that. I'll keep shaking the rust off as far as doing this type of thing, getting comfortable in front of a camera again. But no, I think the podcast definitely will evolve, and I think people will probably notice changes or just different things on episodes. And whether you're watching it, listening to it, there's a lot of different options, right? On our YouTube channel, Facebook page, we will be promoting these, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts as well. So thank you for the vision. This is great. I think a lot of potential here, and thanks for being on.
Well, I'm really excited about it. I think it also, the key thing, again, it fills a void, I think, that we have on this, and hopefully we can, again, educate not only our own district with our own staff, because that's something we can definitely do a better job on, but with our students, for our stakeholders, for our parents. This is not just meant to fill a pigeonhole into a specific spot, but better educate people, because that's the one thing about what Hamilton is. It is about community, and the community involves everybody on that. And so it's super impressive when you show the statistics of how many people not affiliated necessarily with the school are interacting with if it's social media or a website or whatnot. Awesome. It just shows that it really takes a village. And so that we're trying to really educate everybody and give them an opportunity. If they want to learn more, here it is.
That's right. This has been another great episode of H2Know podcast with Hamilton Community Schools Superintendent Dr. Brad Lusk. Stay tuned for more coming up in the coming weeks, and be sure to check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day, Hawkeye Nation.
Go Hawkeyes.